Hello everyone, hope you are doing well. I got a frog in my throat, there we go. It's Tech Talk time. We haven't done a Tech Talk in a while, a few weeks because of the dev server and everything. It just gets in the way, like it's pretty much as simple as that. It's with the dev server stuff and also like a bunch of the other stuff going on, like the anniversary stuff, this kind of takes like a little backseat, so that's why we haven't kind of done the tech talk in a while. We will be back to doing it every week now, though, because I don't think there's too much stuff going on, if I'm honest. I don't think there's a crazy amount of things. I might be wrong about that, though, because this update is coming out a lot later than other ones, so we'll have to see how it goes. So, what is the Tech Talk? Tech Talk's pretty simple. It's a podcast where we basically go through the comments of the previous one. If people want anything chatted about, or if anybody wants anything moved around and discussed, it's best to put it in the comment section. We also do stream it live, so if anybody has any questions live, we can go through those too, which is something we've done. We now stream on YouTube and Twitch, which has actually been pretty fun, pretty prolific, and pretty enjoyable. I've been playing a lot of different games recently, just because of the fact that with War Thunder, with the anniversary event and everything like that, it's been a little bit crazy covering all of the new stuff, so I wanted to kind of take a break mentally and focus on other things. So we played all the Stalker games as well as doing all the War Thunder stuff, so that's the 3 Stalker games. That was pretty nice. We played some Orcs Must Die 3 as well. That was really fun. Would highly recommend that if you haven't played that too. So yeah, it was overall not too bad. Hey TK, nice to see you. Nice to see you too, Diaboli. Happy Friday. Nice to see you too, Philip. Hopefully everything is good and you are doing well. Do I have the rare Russian yak? I have one of them. I'm missing one of the lags. That's the Russian thing I don't have. I don't have the lag 3-4. I have the lag 3-34, I think it's called. Hey Alex, nice to see you. Hopefully you're doing good. Nice to see you too, Terminator. I'm doing well. You know, we're just doing the tech talk stuff first, and then we'll get into some proper job gaming. I think we'll play the Puma today and have a bit of fun with it. But yeah, the last weeks have been good. They've been really fun to cover everything, all the new stuff. This update's massive, man. Like, I was thinking about it and the amount of stuff they're adding, even just like the size of it, like gig-wise, it's a big chunky. So hopefully, it won't be too much of an issue for people. But I think it's nice to see so much new stuff when it comes to War Thunder, and also, there is some like mid-tier stuff which is nice too, so we can kind of focus on that. We'll see what goes on with it though. So let's get to the comments. Let's go through. Let's have a bit of fun as we do. Thank you for the timestamps, TT Flap. It's very kind of you. Mercy Bukop, very kind indeed for doing those. Will be obviously, if people do timestamps, I can obviously get them like a game or something like that, just to say thank you. So I'm guessing that's going to be on the radar in a little bit. Since Christmas is coming up as well, we are going to do a bunch of giveaways for Christmas stuff. So probably a bunch of games and a bunch of other things as well, some codes for certain things, just to kind of say thank you. It's been a very good year in terms of just like making stuff and getting all the balances right. I feel very good, so it's nice to give a little bit back. Is it fun being a content creator? Yeah, of course. Otherwise I wouldn't do it. Like, it's simple as that, right? Like the content creator thing for me is a hobby, and it always will be. It's been really nice having a hobby that you can make some money from, but it's never going to be my main source of income. And to be honest, if it was, I think I'd be living in a box by now. But the simple fact is you have to enjoy doing this stuff. If it ever gets to a point where you become one of those people who just resents everything that you see, you really need to rethink what you're doing in terms of these things. Because I see like a lot of people start going into that whole thing about how hard it is to be a content creator, and it's so many hours and it's so difficult. It's like, I come from a culture where people went down mines 12 hours a day. Like, it's It's so ridiculous, like hearing about like stress and all of this stuff. Like there are plenty of opportunities to go do other things for people. It's pretty nuts. But yeah, the simple fact is, it is very fun, and I do enjoy it a lot, which is why I do it quite a lot. My balance with like my work life, my personal life, and this is probably a little bit whack if I compare it to others, but for me it works really well, and yeah, I really do enjoy life at the moment. It's fantastic. It's really good. Happy Friday, Peter the Great. Nice to see you. Hopefully you're doing good. But you'll know when I stop enjoying it because I'll just stop doing it, and I'll find a different hobby to do. But I can't see myself doing that anytime soon. The major thing that would stop me doing stuff like this would be like external factors. So for example, like I don't know, if the economy got really bad, or I had to really focus on work, or had to focus on finding like new employment or something, because obviously just like everybody, I have people to look after. So if that ever becomes in jeopardy, then I have to start thinking about what I'm going to do in that way. But that hasn't been the case for 5, 6, 7 years. I don't see why it would be a case in the future. I back myself pretty heavily when it comes to this stuff, so I think we'll be good. Won't be too bad. The major issue I see with content creation in general is people seeing it as a way out of normality, which it kind of can be, depending on the person. But the problem is as well, is it is fleeting, and just like a lot of jobs which are based around popularity, celebrity ideas or whatever, if you don't develop other talents, or if you don't develop like other qualifications while you're doing that, you're going to have a pretty harsh reality in like 5, 10, 15 years when everything comes crashing down. Unless you have made enough of a bank somehow to be able to, survive from that. But at least from my point of view, when I look at the stuff that I do, there is no way that could be the case. So we even talked about recently like the money made from like streaming and stuff like that, and it's a lot less than people think, just because of general economic stuff. But yeah, people always look at very large channels and think everything else is like that. It really isn't. Stuff like this has to be a passion project for people. There we go. Any leaks for Ronaldo tech tree? Ronaldo? What, you mean like Sue? No, not at all. No, the only way Cristiano Ronaldo gets into War Thunder is if the Saudi Arabian state wants to do a sponsorship deal with Gaijin through their esports stuff to promote the fact that they're not an awful dictatorship and they're actually really cool, because they pay for things. Don't look at anything else. Everything is fine. Yes, thank you. Not sponsored by the Saudi Arabian state. But yeah. Ooh. Oh, bad. Alright, so let's go for the first question. From Delta Phoenix. I've always wondered why a driver override mechanic hasn't been introduced for tanks that feature assistant drivers that had their own set of fully functional controls, like a lot of US tanks. I mean, it's the same principle as Commander Override. It's the same principle as Commander Override, and I feel that if you add the delay, like what happens with the Commander, it would be balanced. Also, hope you have a wonderful week, Tech, and love your vids. Oh, I will do. And it was a great week. And last week was good. This week was great too. Everything's been really good. Very, very positive period of time. Yeah, they could do that. They kind of already do, depending on the vehicle, right? So there are certain vehicles in the game that have two drivers. So the Puma, for example, the STKFZ 234s. Then also, you have the AB, is it the AB41 or the AB43, one of those? So a lot of wheeled vehicles at the start or in the mid-30s actually had this kind of like two-driver setup. And it seems like that is translated into War Thunder. Now, with the updated damage models, that might not be the case for too long, because one of the problems with the updated damage models is the fact that you have linked driver controls. So with these linked driver controls, you can be in a situation where your driver's knocked out, but it also hits the driver control, which is linked to the other driver control, so you won't be able to move. When it comes to like stuff like, I think the Chaffee was like this, right? Where it had the driver position, and then in the machine gunner system there was like there was another like set of controls. I don't think obviously that's in the game, but I'd be fine with it existing. It just kind of depends on how widespread of a thing that is, because the mechanic is there. Like it's already there with different setups, right? But I don't think it is for that. Maybe that can be something with like the updated damage models they could do. So they could make it so that's kind of like a factor in it. Well, yeah, it's very nation biased, because I can't think of another nation that does it apart from America. Like just like thinking about it in general. But yeah, the mechanic already exists, so they could just apply it to different stuff. It could work pretty well. Do I believe in Russian bias? Not really. No. Because the problem is, for every moment you can point towards something being biased towards Russia, you can point to a moment where it isn't. So, for example, like people are bringing up like the RWR stuff that's happening to the American RWRs, but it's already happened to the Russian ones. So, like the Russian ones have been like that for a long time. And then the other one is like the MiG-23 just getting absolutely blasted the last year and not moving in BR at all. So like losing a ton of flight performance, losing being able to use the radar mode that you want. So yeah, the simple fact is, like, even with like the Tunguska, when people were talking about how overpowered that thing was, it really wasn't. Like the radar on it and the tracking was awful, and also the missiles until you got the upgrade. It unfortunately had the same issues as all of the other missile AAs. But as I said, for every moment you can point towards what is seen as an advantage, it's very easy to see a bunch of disadvantages too. The only place that I don't like what Gaijin does was when they talked about the missiles, and this is something that they've had to apply across the board, where when they have historical documentation for one thing, and then it goes, and then they have to apply it to a bunch of others because there's no other data for anything else from that type of thing. Now that, even though they have to do it, is never going to sit right with people, because you can't get away from the fact that they're going, okay, so this technology is like this, these guys made it like this, we believe, or the information about any of the other like things does not exist, and we're not able to get access to it, therefore we're going to treat them all the same. And people are never going to be okay with that, right? Like that's never going to be something where people turn around and go, yeah, that sounds reasonable, because they're going to go, well, why don't you just use the other sources? And then they turn around and go, because we can't get access to them. And then they go, well, why can't you? Because they're classified. And it's like, well, you should get access to them. This isn't fair. They have to be different, right? So it's one of those like things that they can never win at. Like they can't really do anything about. Yeah, and then also like even stuff like the R60, right? The R60 was just absolutely destroyed, like when it came in, or at least it came in and then they nerfed the absolute living hell out of it. It's kind of crazy. I plan to make a tank and play model store and sell it to my viewers in the War Thunder community because a lot of them collect those. What do you think of it? I'm guessing this would be an online store. There's a lot of competition in online model making. Would you basically be using yourself as a middleman? In terms of like, certain other stores that do this stuff, or would you try and create your own models? Because the only area that I can think of that isn't kind of covered in terms of like that type of thing would be like digital models, but I don't know how much of a market there is for something like that. If you're able to undercut the competition, obviously that would be great, but I don't really see a market there since there's already so many well-established brands with it. Who knows? You at least try and give it a go. I bought already a ton of die-cast, half metal, half plastic quality models, so you store them? Yeah, but as I said, like, so you're gonna buy them from a competitor, and then you're gonna sell them on at a higher price because you have to make your margin better. So like, how is that gonna work? Wouldn't you just be out competed at that point? Because you have to put them at a higher price than what you're buying them for. Unless you can get some kind of like, you know, unless you can get some kind of like better deal. But like if you sell something like that, like my brain just turns around and goes, well, I could just buy it from the guy that you're buying it from. So like, and once I do that, it's cheaper. So you have to like add value to it, right? What is the value that you're adding? Let's see. So we have organic chemistry junkie. Sorry, I just have to shoot this Ju-87. Try to. There we go. Lovely. Hey TEC, thanks for the critique last time. Ultimately, the desire of mine is to massively rebuff SPAGs. Comes from a desire to see the entire cast debate laid to rest. I wish that was possible, but it won't ever be. And yes, I played against Foxes, Falcons, Gepards, Itzvers, ZSU-57s, etc., and I seriously do think how all AA should be. I've played some of these myself, and I'm also a veteran of the days long past when the Whirlwind was an anti-tank menace in 3.7 with its APCR belt. I generally think that is how SPAGs should behave. Most users don't think sitting near the back of the map, hoping for a tank, not to see them as entertaining, moving with the team, and being able to shred tank sides reliably is. Well, the issue with a lot of the vehicles that you mentioned is they're not going through the sides of vehicles, they're going through the fronts of vehicles. Like this is the problem, right? So if you take something like a Gepard, or if you take something like a Gepard or an Itzver or a Falcon, there are weak spots on tanks that they can just shred through, whether it's turret rings, whether it's cupolas, whether it's viewports, and a lot of people just die through the front. It's kind of like the M60 cupola thing, right? So if it was just, you know, flank through the side and do stuff like that, then fair enough. Like, we could have a conversation. But a lot of the time when, at least for me, when I look at stuff like that, and when I play stuff like that, it's more about them using just the amount of bullets to just fire them at my face, so I can't see the target because I don't cut my graphics down to nothing, so I still actually have animations in the game. And then also after that, so after going through all of that, I have to hope that one of their bullets doesn't randomly find a hole in my armor that kills me. You know. Like, it's one of those things that is not very fun to play against. And as I said, what will happen is it'll just become Call of Duty, where everybody will just run those vehicles and nothing else. I generally think that is how SPAG should behave. Most users, blah blah blah. Sorry, I already read that. Rebuffed AA would also completely solve the light tank spam problem and the IFV spam problem. In addition, yeah, because nobody would play them, they'd just play the AAs. Because all the AAs that you've mentioned have stabilizers, apart from the ZSU-57. So they would just go around the side and annihilate you. In addition to making the intended counter to CAS more within reach of the average user, then at that point, no user within their right mind has any excuse whatsoever to complain about how supposedly overpowered Cass is with AA that strong. Right, you're not solving the issue. You're basically going, this thing over here is too good, so now I'm going to make something that is overpowered to beat it. I remember when we discussed this, like a few weeks ago when we started this. You cannot replace overpowered things with more overpowered things, because we will be having this same debate and chat in 2 years' time where you are saying, why is everybody playing AAs and not playing anything else? How do we make it so people start playing IFEs and start playing MBTs again? How do we make it so people actually want to play planes again? Right? So it's you are ending one debate by annihilating pretty much how the game is played in favor of one specific vehicle type, and alienating everybody else who plays those specific vehicles, and then they're going to want to do what you're trying to do for that vehicle type. Right? It's not sustainable. You're not fixing the problem. You are just moving it to another set of vehicles. Yeah, it also doesn't make AA better against planes at all. If anything, it makes them worse, because most planes don't have any armor. So you won't get people using AAs more against planes. They'll just be used all the time against tanks. And then when a plane turns up, maybe it'll still do the same thing. Like, that's the thing you gotta think about. Like, hey Teddy, nice to see you. If someone still tries to complain, it's no longer a game problem, but rather a problem of that individual user refusing to adapt. So if people don't want to play AAs, then it's their fault. If everybody else is playing AAs. Because that's what will happen here. You could turn around and say exactly the same thing to you, in this sense. You are failing to adapt to the current environment, which shows what is meta and what is not. Therefore, it is a failure on your part to continue to be able to push forward with this idea. Because you want to change how everything works in favor of yourself. Do you see how this doesn't work? Right? This is the same conversation I've been having for years for people. Because all of the standards that you are putting out to yourself can also be applied to yourself. You want to fundamentally change the game in order to neuter a bunch of different vehicle types, in order to make one overpowered, so therefore people use it more, and then when it becomes overpowered, you'll be confused why nobody's playing anything else. And then when people try and play other stuff, and they get creamed by these things that are running around with high mobility, high stability, and just nailing everything in sight, because nothing will have armor at that point, just like stuff like the Baguette Panzer already does, which is basically what you're advocating for. Right? And they still won't be able to be good at what they're supposed to be good at. And people just use them in the wrong way. And then they'll ask, where are the IFEs? Where are the MTBs or the MBTs? Where are the SPGs? Where are all these things? And I'll turn around and go, well, they decided to heavily favor this side, so therefore you don't get anything else. And everything will just become a ping game, where whoever sees who first, whoever hits the left click first, wins. Like, that sucks. Right? And it's also what what high tier has devolved into with the light tank stuff. This is just a aggressive, what do you call it? Oh my god. This is just an aggressive, like, recalculation into that area. Like, it would just cause the issue tenfold and wouldn't even fix the issue. This is the issue with War Thunder balancing just in general, by the way. If you sit there and, you know, massively favor one side of something, because you feel like it needs to be rebalanced compared to everything else, you will make people not play anything. That's why, like, certain vehicles in air are completely worthless. Like light strike aircraft, or anything, anything apart from, like, you know, when you have a look at helicopters, right? Only about 5 or 10% of helicopters are actually used, if you haven't noticed. Which is, like, really sad, because you want more of them used. But the simple fact is if they're not good enough, then, you know, people aren't going to use them. Oh, I didn't kill that guy. But yeah, thank you for the subscription, by the way, Constable Rod. Thank you for continuing to support the channel. It's very much appreciated. Thank you very much, man. Merci beaucoup, cop, and nice to see you. And I'll sit in my plane and get all the free kills and the SPA is not shooting at me. Well, not even that, they still won't be able to shoot at you, right? Like, they'll still have the same issues as they had before. So once somebody gets in a plane, they'll just be able to overpressure everything because they have no armor, which is what happens to SPAs. And even if you get rid of, like, people sitting in their spawn, it's still not hard to see people. There are way more ways to be able to work out where people are compared to just looking at the spawns, right? That's like a top tier thing, not an every tier thing. You know. Thank you for the subscription, old chief. Thank you for continuing to support the channel. It's very much appreciated. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup, cop. But yeah, let's give it a go. Screw it. Let's go nuts. You know, let's just make ultimate multi-role vehicles and then wonder why nobody plays anything else. Mosquito flies next to my ear and it's annoying. Give me a great idea. Fluoracrad plus microwave edit. Microwave. Interesting. Why don't all nations have naval? Probably a mixture of two things. The fact that naval is the newest type of kind of vehicle type. So takes a bit longer to add stuff to it, the popularity of it, and also just some nations in real life not having any naval vehicles, aka Israel. Like, Israel doesn't have a navy. Should the Hungarian MiG-29 be given R-73s? No. By the way, then we have Chris Stew. Thank you for the donation on the tech talk. That's very kind of you. Thank you for supporting the channel. Very much appreciated. Thank you very much. Merci. Ooh, cop. To Sweden? Sweden actually has quite a rich history of naval forces, yeah. They could Sweden could easily have a tree for naval if they wanted to add it in. But once again, that's the popularity issue. Tell me how many people ground out French coastal. You know. The guy just missed. This tiger can't do anything against the Ush because he just killed his barrel. Imagine if that Ush had APDF. That'd be fun, wouldn't it? But yeah, I think in general, like, Gaijin's added a lot of stuff for naval, haven't they? Over, like, the last few years. When you think about, like, the percentage played of each of the game modes, naval is highly represented in terms of the amount of vehicles it gets compared to the amount of people who actually play them. It's pretty cool. So we have Manuel Guedes, our boy Manuel. Hi Tech, hello. The second task of the page of history for November, it is only possible to do in hurricanes. There was a similar task in the previous pages of history that was exclusive for Spitfires. Do you recall if there were more tasks for variants of a vehicle, or was it just British bias? Well, they do first flights of things, right? Didn't they do one for the Phantom? I think they did a first flight at the Phantom. So you had to play a Phantom. I can't remember which Phantom I used for that. I'm pretty sure it was the F4C. But yeah, it's something they do every so often. I've only seen it for planes though. I don't think I've ever seen it for ground or for naval. Like I don't remember like one which was like, hey, a prototype of the Sherman came out this month, so play Shermans. Know what I mean? So I don't know about that one, but yeah, it's definitely happened before for other vehicles. I think there was a Yak one too, wasn't there? Like for Yakovlev's birthday or something like that. I don't really like those ones because they obviously severely limit the amount of things that you do. I think it would be quite nice if they did something else with that. So I've talked about this before of expanding like the pages of history. So for certain tasks, instead of making them vehicle specific, make them nation specific. Because of the fact that you have so many different vehicles which are just not used in the page of history because they were just never used in real life. But imagine if they did like, hey, it's Bastille Day today. So for this page of history, you can use French vehicles from, you know, rank 2 to rank 5. So maybe they can add in like a qualifier for rank or something, right? Or maybe it's like, hey, this was the day that Israel was built, or Israel became a thing. So go play Israeli vehicles. And they could even increase the amount of mission score that you need because you have much more variety of vehicles that you can play. And I think in general that would be better. And once again, it would open up a lot of these nations to actual play. Because right now with the page of history, there are a lot of nations that get play, which is really cool. But there's also a lot of nations that will never really be touched. Like, what page of history is Sweden ever going to do? Like, of course, they had, like, the Hurricane, the Finnish Hurricane. Maybe they could add, like, a winter war kind of one. But even then, there's not a lot of vehicles in the game that they can add to that. So yeah, it feels kind of bad it feels kind of bad for certain nations that they'll just never really be featured. I think it would be better if it was a little bit different. I don't think the concept of page of history needs a rethink. I think just that there's so much of the game that it's missing out, and also we're getting to a point which is incredibly important to talk about, which is there are some of these page of history missions that we're doing over and over again, and with the same vehicles. So I don't know how many. It would be cool to do like a tally. Maybe we could do a tally. But the tally would be how many pages of history missions have been Eastern Front 1942 to 1945. Because I feel like at least half of them, or at least a very, very high percentage, have been that. Which is, once again, fine. Like, it don't really matter. But it's just something where it's like, okay, it's this page of history, so I played this vehicle. But I feel like pages of history should be more about, okay, I wanna do something different today. And if that thing that you're doing different is the same every time, it's not really different, is it? It's basically the same. So you get stuck in a rut, you know, doing the same stuff. Alright. Is it true that the Time 99 is better than the Sholef? Yeah, it's miles better. Better reload, better mobility, better optics, better round. It's better in every way. The only thing it isn't better at is it doesn't have premium. Which is, you know, a factor, but not a huge one. I would rather have a tech tree vehicle, which is better in terms of like me being able to do stuff with it, than a vehicle that I can't do anything in, and it'd be a premium. Hey Moff, nice to see you. Hopefully you're doing good today. And we have CG, mashed potatoes. Tell you what, I looked into a Michelin star chef mashed potatoes that made him like famous. And he used like a specific type of potato. He also like boiled them. I think, oh shit. He boiled them once, or he like boiled them and then roasted them, or roasted them and then boiled them. I can't remember what it was. And then he mixed them with butter, and then obviously like made them really, really soft. But the crazy thing The crazy thing about it, right, was the fact that this guy, the ratio that he did to potato to butter, which he used butter to kind of like soften it, right? The ratio was 1 to 1. So if you were eating like, let's say 200 grams of potato, you would add 200 grams of butter to it. Like, so therefore you just ended up constantly just eating like a slab of butter. So at that point, are you really like focusing on the potatoes? Or is that just a butter monolith? You know what I mean? Like, to me, that's kind of crazy. Hey, Chieftain Mike, nice to see you. So yeah, mashed potatoes, also the best type of potatoes. I do like my mashed potatoes slightly chunky though, just because I like a bit of texture. I don't like eating like baby food, so just kind of how it goes. But it was nice. Good old mashed potato. Actually, no, roasted potatoes in goose fat is probably the best potato, but that's also really hard to pull off and also quite expensive. So yeah, it would be kind of crazy. Hey Zara, nice to see you, man. Happy Friday. Well done on getting through the week. Good stuff. So we have Chris Do. I also understand that they're changing the load speed on higher tier tanks to 5 seconds. NATO standards and American standards for reload speeds are just under 5 seconds. If a loader can't load a shell within the time period, he's no longer qualified to be a loader in such a tank. Yeah, but also manual reloads are a balancing factor, so it's the same reason why like vehicles don't get the best rounds that they could fire, right? The manual reloads are just used to balance vehicles, which is why they change. Like when they made that change to the Leopard's reloads, the Leopard 2s, it was straight up because they were overperforming, so they had to nerf them. And it's one of the ways that they can soft nerf vehicles without having to do crazy changes. The thing about Gaijin and their vehicles in the game is they try and model them as realistic as possible, right? So armor values, mobility values, targeting speed, all these things, thermals, all stabilizers, all these things have to be what they are in real life, or at least as close to real life as we know. And obviously with like game limitations and stuff, yada yada yada. But the issue is that means in order to balance a vehicle, they don't really have many options. You can't do the economy anymore because people are like, nah, we don't like that. So they've got rid of that. So your options are BR, batter rating, which is good. But then what if you have two vehicles which are at the same batter rating, but one is performing better than the other one? Well, you put one up in batter rating, right? But then when you put that one up, it's not doing very well at the new battle rating because it now has to deal with more monsters that are actually better than it. So you can decompress the BRs, which is sometimes what they do, but also there's a bunch of other factors to that. The black hole issue that we've talked about, the amount of vehicles that are there, the people actually playing those areas, all of these things are like factors in this setup, right? So you have all those going on. So you can't always do that, especially if it's only for one vehicle, because then you'd have to do it for several vehicles over and over and over again. So one of the soft ways that they can balance tanks is through their reload, and that's what they do. So for reloads and for ammunition, both of those are balancing factors. Not just for high-tier tanks, by the way, for all tanks in the game, and even like some auto-loaded tanks. Like some auto-loaded tanks don't have their real reload, or don't have their under stress reload, if you want to put it like that. Hey, Slanesh God, nice to see you. If you ate 40,000 bananas in 10 minutes, you would die of radiation poisoning. I think you would die of other stuff before that happened. Like, just that amount of mass that you have to consume. Like, how heavy is 40,000 bananas? But yeah, the simple fact is, yeah, it's one of those things that will always annoy people, in terms of like the reload stuff. But what is the other option? Like they make everybody have like the maximum reload that these vehicles have. They lose a balancing factor, and then they have to put vehicles at BRs where they just don't fit properly, and people are just complain about the imbalance. So yeah, they've kind of, in a way, they've made it hard for themselves. because they've made it so there aren't a lot of factors that they can balance around. But also at the same time, that's why people like War Thunder, or at least one of the reasons, because of its authenticity and its, you know, historical care. Like, there's actually been a lot of things that they've done over the last period, which I think have actually been quite negative in terms of balance and in terms of, like, you know, making everything work properly. But they've done it because of their care for the historical accuracy of the game. And, you know, that has to be commended, since that is the, you know, what they want to focus on. For me personally, I don't think I would focus on it as much as they do, but, you know, they obviously care a lot about that. So is the regular PS5 getting ray tracing or not? I have no idea. I don't know. I don't know how much power's under the hood of a standard PS5. They can also nerf the shells like the British Sabre. They can do, but that causes a lot of people to get really pissed off, as we've seen, right? Hey Nurgle, nice to see you. Happy Friday. Hopefully you're doing good. Hopefully life's alright. One more ground kill. So we have Cat Top. Hey Tech, I'm here to give some insight on how overpressure works. Most of what I'm saying comes solely from observation, so it might be wrong to how it actually works. Well, we can see how overpressure works. There's a wiki article on it, and I think they did a dev blog on it as well. I just think it works wrong. Like, that's the thing. Is it nice being the neighbor of the US? Yeah. Yeah, you can just hop the border, buy a bunch of cool stuff, and come back. America actually has some really cool shops. So a lot of cool things. The Gaijin nerf SL gains? No, I don't think so. Because overpressure is more tied to high explosive shells than any other shells in the game, this is not true. It's not tied to high explosive shells. It's tied to shells with explosive mass. It's best to understand how high explosive shells actually behave. HE shells explode out in a sphere upon contact, and their penetration is dependent on the explosive mass. The penetration also doesn't scale proportionally to the explosive mass, meaning you gain less penetration for every kg of explosive added to the shell. But the penetration drop-off distance doesn't suffer the same effect. More explosive filler increases the radius in which max penetration is possible, and the distance gained does not drop off as significant compared to penetration. Overpressure only works on enclosed tanks when it gets penetrated. Using your example in the Magak 7C, when the HE shell hits the cupola or the turret of the tank, it's not just trying to penetrate the armor it made contact, but also every piece of armor within its explosive radius. Which includes a 32mm turret roof and the 36mm hull roof armor, which sits under the point of contact. The HE shell with 42mm penetration can easily go through those areas, which when triggered the overpressure effect, thus killing the crew. This is the reason why SPHs are so good at overpressuring other vehicles. Their shells with 61mm of pen will always penetrate down to the roof of the tanks they're facing, especially since basically every tank in the game has less than 61mm of roof armor, except the T-32E1, where the whole roof is 66mm thick. Yeah, I know. That's not the issue. That, as I said, this is all in articles. It's on the War Thunder wiki. You know, it's something we've talked about before. The issue is it's hitting a point on the tank, and as you said, it is creating a sphere of damage, which it shouldn't be doing. And that sphere has the exact same penetration as the initial hit on the tank. So if it hits, let's say, just a random place on the tank, that has 60mm of pen. But then that whole cone of the exterior of where the explosive mass goes also has 61mm of pen. That's not how it should work. Which was the whole debacle with the whole APHE stuff that people got annoyed about. And why, like, the vote failed. Because people want it to work like that because they're morons. Like, that's literally it. So yeah. The simple issue with it is that it's the fact that it doesn't lose any penetration over time. which was the same issue as a lot of other mechanics in War Thunder. So why should something which has 61mm of pen, when it hits a surface, still continue to have that same penetration as a secondary fragment, which has lost velocity, and also at the same time lost a metric ton of mass? Because it isn't as if the 100% of the mass can go in every single individual direction. So why is it set up like that? And why can't it be changed? That's pretty much it. That's the issue at the end of the day. So I get why it works. It's just stupid how it works. Does that make sense? Right? Have you ever played Warhammer Total War, Nurgle? I feel like you'd enjoy that game a lot. Oh, did you play Space Marine? Space Marine 2? That was super fun. I had a really good time with Freeman on that one. But yeah, the simple fact is, like, just it's like one of those things where it's like, I understand how a system works, I just disagree with how the system works, and you can kind of show like ludicrous things on how stupid the system is. And stuff like the Magak 7C is one of those things where, and also, like, you know, when the Sabra comes in, it's going to have the same issue. That is like a obvious gleaming example of how wrong these things are set up, right? But instead, everybody's worried about what happens to APHE shells, because that's, I don't know, the thing to talk about. Yeah, or the flat side of like an IS, the flat side of an IS-3, right? Or even the front of an IS-3, right? Like when it gets hit by 109. Like we can have a look here after this game's finished on the IS-3 and like ask, why does it work like that? You know. I did enjoy it, Noggle. It was very good. It was a great time. So then we have Shikamaru. And for the implement unloading where it worked and leave it out of tanks where you can't do it. Testing it on the dev server would be nice, but yeah, it really happens very rarely that you need to swap around. The rareness is fair, but as I said, I get that that is realistic, but then you just have people complaining about why doesn't their tank get it. It would be, as I said, it would be much better to just create a blanket setup, right? A blanket setup where every vehicle you have an option that you can toggle on and off whether you load a shell or not. That's it. And that would fix it for everybody. Like, we don't even have to go into that other realm. We can just do that. And then after that's implemented, we can see how people feel about it. And then what you can do is maybe implement individual vehicles to have the unload-load mechanic if you really want to. But when we do changes like this, it's much more important to apply it to everything, because if you only apply it to specific thing, kind of like the updated damage models, right? Or the volumetric armor. If you only do it to specific vehicles and don't do it to others at the same time, even though it's like an ongoing process, you're going to get some whack statistics on you know, how useful is it? How is it changing the vehicle? What is going on with it? All of these things, right? And there's going to be a huge percentage of error. So I'd rather have stuff which is a blanket, easy, simple thing to add, right? That's how to set it up. Have you ever played the CV9120? Yeah, I have. I enjoy it. I think it's fun. I do need to get back to it because they have changed it since I played it. But those vehicles, which are, you know, light, mobile vehicles with big old guns, they always feel pretty good to me. The only one that I would say I had a rough time in more recently was the M1128. That's because I played it at the height of Baglet Gate and Puma Gate and all of the light tank gates. Yeah, if you want to add in that mechanic, sure. But at the same time, you could just add in the other one, and it would make a lot more sense. Should I buy another USA premium or stick with the A10A? Just grind out the tech tree, man. Like, America has the best jets in the game by far. You'll have a great time playing them. It's super easy to play them. You will do things and have wonders that you will never, ever see. If you want to pick up an American premium, though, just wait until Christmas. Christmas is a big holiday for Americans, just like it is for a lot of the Western world, and Gaijin like to, you know, give it a bit of fun. So we have Insane Robert. Hello, Tech. Regarding helicopter PVE, I played my fair share time in this mode. I can tell you that Gaijin can reduce the matches to 4 to 6 players per battle, and can still be beaten in under 1.5 hours. I know that this has been discussed a number of times on your tech talks, but I'd like to highlight a couple of issues that Gaijin is also ignoring on Heli PvE, since it's not the highest priority, and would greatly improve the gameplay. Okay. Good evening, Lutax. Nice to see you. I'm doing well, thank you. Hopefully you're doing good too. We finished all the Stalker games, which is fun. Ready for Stalker 2 now. On the number of players topic, it is better than what it used to. The real problem is the very high discrepancy between BR sets. If you get in a 77280 BR helicopter and play against 9.3s, like an AB blah blah blah, or a 9.7 helicopter versus 11, I can guarantee you won't do much in the battle, especially in the 9.7 and above area of the game, where you compete versus the K50 spam and similar helis that can kill anything at 10km range quickly. Many people abandon a match because they can't reach targets in time to kill anything. Yeah, it's the same issue that PvP had. And it's also just the issue with helicopters in general. We brought it up earlier, brought it up many times. The issue is the fact that a lot of the vehicles are very different in terms of setup. So, yeah, people just go for the meta ones. In the 7.7 to 9.3 BR range, the biggest issue is the AI Gepards from convoys being able to kill you from 3 kilometers away in one shot, and you either, 1, lack any 80 gems, and you must get close, and you must get close and personable. Good luck with that one, since most of the time you won't hit anything under 1 kilometer range. And then 2, the 80 gems are too weak in short range, so you must be in the firing range of the Gepard, which means death in a couple of seconds. This has been a major problem for more than a year, and it was still not solved by Gaijin. Probably because the 9.3 ones are just killing them anyway. Yeah, just, as I said, just add in a new BR bracket. There you go. This topic is dull for me, because it's one of those where it's like, the whole point of the reason why the mode exists is because people were not able to grind their helicopters in ground battles, and they also couldn't grind them in heli PvP because of the K50 and other vehicle, and people just going towards what the best vehicles are. Okay? Like, let's be honest about it. Where the hell is the M109? Oh, there it is. Which, you know, is fair. So this mode, where you can grind stuff out, you know, the idea is you cannot grind it out. You cannot grind it out. You cannot grind it out well enough because of other vehicles being too good. Okay? Just add more ranks. There. This, as I said, this type of topic, I just find it very hard to care about. Yeah, it's as simple as. This would be something to put towards the helicopter content creators, whoever they are. So this is the front of the IS-3 against an M109A1. So with this vehicle, it is getting penned straight through the cheek. It is getting penned and overpressured through the track. Like, literally. Look at this crap. You can shoot it here, and it kills everything. How dumb is that? And then there's even random spots here where it can just go through. I don't even understand how it's doing that. But yeah, so that's, as I said, if you have a look here, this is 30 millimeters, right? So because the round isn't losing penetration after it hits here, it isn't going through. And then these are the tracks, which are 50, so it pens those. And then somehow it's going through 90 millimeters worth of armor. I have no idea how. Like, how is it doing that? It literally can't get through there. What is the base plate of the vehicle? Oh, it's going through there. There you go. So it's hitting this, somehow protruding through the track in the sphere, hitting the 20 millimeters and going through and killing everybody in the vehicle. So the issue is, as I've said previously, is the fact that it doesn't lose penetration. It makes no sense. It's very, very dumb how it works. It's a super easy thing to fix as well, surely. You just make it so the secondary fragments have less penetration than the primary fragment. That can't be that hard. Or maybe it is. But yeah, so... You know what's funny as well? You see this? You can't actually pen it straight up front because of the fact that it has the angle. So you can pen it on a secondary fragment, but you can't pen it on a front one. It's so dumb. Can you imagine a Space Marine 2 to 3 went this deep, or at least an Armored Core level depth? It would be fun. Maybe in time, right? But they kind of just wanted to make like an arcadey, like power fantasy, and they did really good with it. It was super fun. Had a great time with it. But yeah, it's just something that they need to have a think about. That's all. Then we have Catfish. Since we have things like Commander Override, I don't see why we can't have a can be unloaded tag when looking at the breach of X-ray. It would work perfectly fine. Yeah, you could do that. Here's a question. This is a fun one. How many tanks in the game can actually unload their breach? Does anybody actually know? Because it's not a common thing. That's always an interesting talking point to me. Does anybody actually know how many tanks can unload their breach? Got a feeling that most people don't know. They know like a few American vehicles that can, and that's about it. It was dangerous to do so, especially with a live round. Yeah. It's definitely it's unadvised or whatever to do. So then we have Nicholas Marjorie. With the overpressure problems, I don't see what is confusing about this. I'm a fairly new player, and that HE round overpressure in the Magats seems perfectly normal to me. The Magats have very weak roof armor on the hull and the turret. So when the HE round hits the cupola or the turret ring, it's not penetrating those thick bits of the armor, but exploding in a sphere, and the thin armor directly below the explosion then gets burst through, causing the overpressure. The T-72 stock grind is best when you utilize the HE over the heat due to this fact. Lots of other vehicles you can do this to are Russian MBTs, shooting the lower half of the front of the turret. Magags, M48s, M60 variants, Leopards, etc. Yeah, all of the vehicles in the game is what you're saying. They all have weak roof armor, and the turret and hull, so semi-decent caliber, HE overpressures them. No, right. Ow. I understand how overpressure works. I'm just saying it should not work like that. It's a ridiculous way that it works. It doesn't make any sense. It lives on the idea... Right, okay. Have you ever seen somebody shoot a gun through a bunch of metal plates? Yeah, why is the driver getting killed if the turret is overpressured? Because the whole idea was you're supposed to have individual compartments of different parts of the vehicle, but that doesn't seem to exist. So, have you ever seen, like, somebody shoot a round through a bunch of metal plates? Or even, how about this? Shooting a round into a sphere. Even if it's just like a chemical round. Like, I don't know, Heat FS or HESH or even just a HE. The round doesn't ricochet and with the same velocity and also the same mass, hit another part of it in a perfect circle. That's not how it works, right? So, since you have this unrealistic way that it functions, it is causing a lot of issues for vehicles where they shouldn't be causing any issues at all. And it's also making it so SPH vehicles are actually usable, which is probably why they haven't changed it. But because there's a lot of vehicles that aren't SPHs and can abuse this fact, and can abuse the type of rounds, it's making them very annoying to face when you use non-meta vehicles. That Magak getting hit in that plate, where that plate is, right, should not get overpressured through it. Because the round has to hit there, fragments of the round have to go backwards from where they came from the initial velocity to penetrate the area which is below them. How does that make any sense? And they somehow don't lose any penetration, and after that, penetrate the target, and with that individual fragment, kill everything inside the vehicle. It makes no sense. It would be right. Every other vehicle, every other round in the game loses penetration after the initial penetration or the initial ricochet or the initial hit, right? But the way that overpressure works, it doesn't lose anything. That's the problem. And it's making certain vehicles impossible to use because you just cannot defend yourself in any way. Like, it's crazy. Hey, Lordon, nice to see you. Thank you for the raid. Hopefully you had a good stream, man. Hopefully everything went well. We're just doing the tech talk, so going through a bunch of the different stuff. So, understanding how things work and also disagreeing with how they work are two separate things. I can understand, you know, how it's put together. I get how Gaijin does it. They've explained it multiple times. I think it's actually a better system than the hull brake system that we used to have, which basically was just overpressure on crack, by the way. But I still think, in general, it's still not a great system. Just make it so after the initial hit, there is loss of penetration. Surely it cannot be that hard. Hey, Tugnuts, nice to see you, man. Oh my god, that was a terrible shot. We're doing the tech talk, and then we're just getting the event done as well. So that was good. Yeah, we're doing the marker distinction for the KV7, and we're just gonna chill today, I think. I'll do too many different things. It does depend on how much HE filler, though. I can understand the 165mm BL9 being able to do it, but 105mm not so much. Well, it depends on the explosive mass of the round, right? So if your round, how much is it again? If your round is over like 800 grams or over 850 grams of explosive mass, it overpressures. That's just how it works. That's why stuff like the Object 279, if you penetrate anywhere on a vehicle, or don't even penetrate a vehicle, as long as you hit close enough to somewhere where it could penetrate, the vehicle dies. And it's very annoying. Because a lot of vehicles have very small, as I said, holes in them, which don't have a lot of armor. So we have CS2. Hey Tech, hope you're doing well. I really don't have a question, but more of a comment for the person questioning about heli PVE. I've learned all the ins and outs of the game mode and found the most efficient ways to grind it. But for people not to be frustrated about not getting kills and leaving about the game, the mode is based on simulator, and as your reward, it's score based per useful action every 15 minutes. Yeah, it is. Getting score isn't all about getting kills, it's everything that will give you score, including capping bases, and I've learned if you get at least 400 score per useful action, will net you max reward for every useful action. On tip, I can give you, if you have a heli that can shoot down the planes, either with guns, missiles, or AGMs, will drastically speed up the matches getting done faster, and give you good score at the same time. Most people don't bother with the plane spawns. Yeah, I mean, there you go. A little bit of an insight on how to get it done a little bit better. The simulator system of how research works is interesting. But I don't really like it, but it's just how it is. If overpressure on small armor done, a G6 can survive 2 overpressures from an 88mm HE. Yeah, because it has different compartments, right? But for some reason, most vehicles don't have multiple compartments. Or at least they don't seem to. That's the issue, right? I have seen the Russian coastal MPK PR11451, yeah. It has the good old diving bell in it. Kinda cool. Nice to see, you know? You think sonar? I mean, maybe. Might have also just been somebody having fun. Building it into the vehicle. Making it something you can destroy. But yeah, there you go. Heli PVE tips. So we have Chris you again. The option you mentioned about reloading shells should be done in simulator, where they have to click the shell type that they really want to load. Let's just do that. Where they really want to load. Also, ready rack should be affected as well in simulator. As I've noticed, with ready racks, I can change ammo out real quick, and it doesn't affect my ready rack. In simulator, your ready rack should be affected if you're changing ammo types, and that ammo type is not in the ready rack. Yeah, that could be fair. You could even take it a step further and make it so people have to take the standard combat load that you would take in these types of vehicles. So for example, if you use World War II vehicles, the vast amount of ammo you'll be carrying is HE. That could be kind of interesting. Force simulator players to play completely simulated. And also make it so if you are in kind of the first person but out of the top of the tank, you know, using that, then what you have to do is, if you get machine gunned, you have to sit in your gunner sight the whole game. That could be fun. I'm down for it. Add in more realistic stuff as it goes. Like, it seems pretty good to me. Why not, you know? Why not, I say. Right. So we have Toshio. Consoles get target tracking, which makes the camera track with your active target, or whatever is closest to your reticle when it's activated. In many ways, this is better than aim assist with other games, as it allows you to draw lead or target a specific mode without snapping. I hadn't thought about its use as a light wall hack. That makes sense. It's a huge advantage for console players, but it's probably not game breaking. Like ULQ, if you don't need it, then you'll generally get more enjoyment out of the game if you ignore it. Yeah, and it only works against aircraft, right? So it doesn't work against ground vehicles. It's actually the same system they have in War Thunder Mobile, and technically in War Thunder you have it too, in air. Because you can... I don't know what the default button is, but basically, I think it might be middle mouse. You can track your vehicle as you move your vehicle, right? So if you do that standardly, it will follow it. You have ground target tracking too in arcade. Oh yeah, in arcade, yeah. But arcade's arcade, isn't it? It's a very different battlefield. But yeah, in realistic, you had the target track thing. But yeah, it's actually in War Thunder Mobile. So I was doing a few games of the aircraft stuff. The aircraft stuff's pretty fun, actually. I think I was just playing against bots. But I ground out like a few planes, kind of just chilled with it. And the interesting thing was, it has like the target tracking, so you select the target you want to track, and then you obviously move your cursor to where you want it going, but also at the same time, it does do like a little bit of auto tracking as you kind of like line up on the vehicle to be able to shoot it. So there's a little bit there. But in general, as I said like last time, I'm not a huge I'm not hugely against it. Like I'm fine with console players getting a little bit of an advantage because they have so much stuff where they get a disadvantage on. I can't even imagine putting like all of the controls on a controller and having to like do all these different button combinations to make everything work. And also there are so many like after updates, there are so many bugs that turn up, which are like controller specific or, you know, issues in that regard. And I just kind of feel bad because of that. The major issue though is if you're abusing the system. So if you're using a mouse and keyboard and you still get access to that system, that is a problem. But I don't know if that's actually the case or not, or how that works. Like whether that is how it's set up. But I don't know. If that's the case, that's a problem. But it's not a huge one in the grand scheme of things. I don't think it's game breaking, or I don't think it's one of those things that, you know, will make people flood to console instead of playing on PC, right? Like, that's just kind of how it is. The rocket vehicles in War Thunder are insanely expensive for what they are, and I have no idea why. It's never made any sense to me why pretty much all the rocket machines are crazy pricey. Because they're not very good, so like, it's very confusing. I don't know what deal with the devil they made, but it wasn't a good one. Then we have random yip. Poland strong. Yeah. You have a lot of people. You have a big military. Kind of interesting to see. A lot of worry as well in that country that I've seen. Kind of weird to see. We'll see what goes on, you know. I feel like Poland should be a little bit more optimistic instead of afraid. But then again, history is a powerful drug. And Polish history has been interesting to read about over the years. I suppose if you're in school in Poland, you get taught about it and the kind of the issues Poland has had with its fight for its independence. Not the easiest thing in the world. Oh, rude. There we go. So we have Jake, the tank master. How's things, techie? Opinions on crisp sandwich? What's your go-to fillings? So, I've been a decent fan of the chip butty in the past. When I was a lot younger. You know, like the floured bun. You know, chips in it. Crispy. Bunch of like tomato sauce. You know, carbs on carbs on carbs. But when it came to crisp sandwiches, I've never been a fan. I think it's the fact that you have two competing things. You have the soft of the bread, and then you have the crunch of the crisp. And I think it just leads me into a false sense of security when I bite into the bread and everything is fine, and then bang, my tooth starts hurting because I crunched on a crisp. And that is something that is never really good for me, in my opinion. I think there are quite a lot of cool combinations for sandwiches. Ones which, for some reason, just never really get talked about. I really like a metric ton of vegetables in bread, and then just a little bit of meat. You know, very standard to a BLT, but just going even more aggressive with it. Just like adding a ton of stuff. Cucumber sandwiches are also insanely refreshing, which is surprising to say the least, since it's such a simple idea. But if I'm making a sandwich, it's always just going to be protein and a metric ton of vegetables. So it'll be some like, you know, it'll be some chicken which has either been baked or been, you know, pan fried, cut up, and then just some lettuce, onions, tomato, pretty much any type of like vegetable you can throw in. And then at most, for a sauce, because I usually don't do sauces, I'll either put some olive oil in it or I'll stick some 50-50 mayonnaise in it. Just a little bit of it. You know, super simple stuff. Things that, you know, worked well together. You don't have to go crazy with things like that. I know people think about like weird flavor combinations, like pickles or gherkins is one of those things which gets brought up quite a lot. Not a huge fan of them, unless they're the spicy kind. You can get these pickle shavings over here, which sit in like chili oil, and they're amazing. Huge fan of that. Big fan. So stuff like that's really nice. But now, generally with sandwiches, I'm usually pretty boring. I don't eat a lot of sandwiches though. Like just thinking about it, because of the extra carbs. I'd rather just have something on a plate and not have the sandwich part. Not from like an enjoyment point of view, but straight up like I'm worried about being fat. I don't want the extra stuff because I don't know. Plays on the mind. Roast beef is really nice, but it just takes a while to make. Gammon is very good in a sandwich. I do enjoy gammon. Then we have Fubar. So on that game, man, you got years on that thing? Yeah. If this is the old Fubar, like the OG Fubar, I haven't chatted to OG Fubar in a long time. I don't know if any of you guys know Fubar. You might, Toshio. Fubar was a classic Americans from the South. Yeah, he had black powder pistols, and he did like several jobs like trucking and things like that, and was honestly one of the funniest guys I've ever chatted to, just in general. Not just his accent, but the way he would say stuff was great. He actually did a little bit of like YouTube stuff. He did that War of Rights game, and also he used to like roleplay with things. And then there was another one. There was what was that pirate ship game that people used to play, where you'd have like PvP and each side would have its own ship. I remember playing that with him at times. Yeah, Fubar was a really fun dude, and just like a lot of the guys from back then, just fun, interesting individuals that, you know, everybody kind of went their own way because we ended up getting busy with things. For me, I got super busy with work stuff and also just like personal life stuff. Just trying to kind of like get everything to the next stage. One of the key things that changed in my life was what I used to do in the mornings, is I used to like hang out on Discord because of the fact that I didn't work in the mornings. I only worked in the afternoons, and worked like afternoon to evenings basically. So more of like a standard work day for people. But that shifted maybe 4 or 5 or 6 years ago. And that meant that I was less available in the mornings and more available in the afternoons and evenings. And since a lot of the people I used to talk to were only available in the mornings, it didn't really make a lot of sense to just kind of like sit on Discord and, you know, go through a bunch of stuff. So I ended up like starting to stream because I didn't really have a ton of people to chat to, and also I was having, you know, my operation and stuff like that, to try and get myself fixed. That was always fun. But yeah, I miss those days where just like chilling for a few hours in the morning chatting to people. But, you know, the fact is times change, people change, and the amount that people have access to is very, very different. It wasn't Sea of Thieves. It was a way older game than that. Let's see if I can find it. Black Wake. There you go. Blackwake. I don't know if it's actually still around. Oh, Blackwake is now free to keep. But yeah, you basically... You both, like, it was a PvP game where one team would fight another team. You took your ships and, yeah, it was all about crew management and stuff. It was one of those games that was fun, but it was never going to last because you needed so many pieces coordinated together. Where's Rocker? Oh, Rocker will be back. We'll probably be watching the football. But once again, like, just like everything else, right? Rocker has a full-time job. I have a full-time job. Alex has, like, his obligations. Pretty much everybody I know has jobs, has families, has everything, so... Sorting stuff out is a little bit harder to do. Hey, Nagaron, nice to see you. Then we have Obir Zoe. With the dev server and the 117 coming, do you think they also modeled radar cross-section of planes? Or does a biplane have the same radar signature as a TU4? The 117 just slightly less. After watching your tests, it looks like there's no way near halfway finished, especially the IR lock. So each plane has its own radar signature in the files. They're not all the same. There are some which are similar, if not the same. But yeah, all that stuff is already modeled. So the F-117, the way that its profile works, is it's very hard to see from the front, but on the sides and also below, it's basically the same. So it's something which is already pretty well done in that way, and I'm pretty sure they would have changed it since I tested it, especially with the IR lock stuff. But yeah, I wouldn't expect it to be as invisible as people want it to be. I expect it just to be a vehicle that's able just to be able to shoot or be able to drop its bombs, and then that's it. I don't really believe it's going to do anything else. Yeah, but all of these things already exist, so different vehicles have different radar signatures in the game, and you can see them in the files. They don't just have like a singular value as well, they have like a front, back, and sides. All this stuff's been in the game for quite a long time now. It's pretty cool. But yeah, I do expect that stuff to change before the release. There was something added to the files that looked pretty cool, but I need to look into it a bit more. It was something to do with like new bases or new things to hit, but I just didn't look enough into it. Like, we'll see as we go what goes on with it. So we have Islam Zayad. Hey TEC. Hello. I thought about the British food thing, and you're right. If I showed someone from Europe Arab food, they're going to say, what the hell is this? But it actually tastes good. Yeah, so a lot of Indian and also Arabian food is very similar. Where if you didn't tell somebody what it was, it just looks like slop, right? Like, like it looks like mixed slop. But you taste it and it's like, oh my god, this is amazing. Like, imagine curries, yeah? Where curries are either like brown, or orange, or red, or green, or grey, or like all of these different things. None of them look particularly nice. They straight up look like, you know, different colors of cowpat. But they taste fantastic. And it's because of the thing in them, the actual flavors, right? And that's the same with a lot of Arabian/Middle Eastern food. It's the same idea. It isn't stuff that is designed to look good. It's stuff that is designed to taste good. And that's what it does very well. Oh dear. So yeah, and a lot of British food is like that too. Like when you look at stews or soups or pies, it isn't about like the, oh, look at all of these like things on a plate. It's more, hey, does this taste good? Hell yeah, it does. Okay? And that's just how it goes. Like we've been making a bunch of soups recently because we got like a new blender, Because one of the things, so doing a lot of the dev server stuff and covering it all, one of the things that I kind of have to like do is to like I feel bad committing as much time as I do to doing the dev server stuff, you know, with like the family being there and, you know, friends and stuff. Sometimes I have to like cancel things in terms of like to do it to make sure it all gets done, since we don't always know when it's going to happen. And so I kind of like say, okay, if you let me do this, then we can compromise and maybe we can like buy something or maybe we can get something. And this time the thing that we ended up getting was a blender. We have a blender, but it's like one of those like small magic bullet ones. So we ended up getting like a proper like ninja blender. And we've been making like tomato soups. We've been making like butternut squash soup, which is really nice. And then also broccoli and cheese soup, which is fantastic. But if you had a look at the broccoli and cheese soup, it straight up looks like sick, right? It looks like baby sick. But it tastes great. And that's just like part of the whole thing. The same with like the tomato one just looks like a reddish gray because it's like onions and tomatoes. And yeah, you could, if you take pictures of it for Instagram, of course you increase the contrast and make it look bright and make the lighting look really good. So it looks like a really bright red. So people really like it. But if you're eating it, it's just a red-gray sludge. But it tastes great. And that's what matters. Like, it's not about making food look nice. That's a Michelin star thing, or that's something that people do to like try and make people like them or get people interested in the food they're making. For me, good food tastes good. So I just make good food. And that's how I feel like a lot of British cuisine is. Yeah, you have all like the frozen crap from like places like Iceland and, you know, herons and stuff like that, where it is just like cheap, basic, you know, very bad for you food. But you also have the other side of things, where you have some of the coolest and most filling dishes in the world. I had problems with build quality on my Ninja Blender years ago. The full height chopper was good for making smoothies. So far, we haven't had any issues with it, but we'll see. Hopefully it's good. It was either that or like really splurge out for a crazy expensive one. And I wasn't a huge fan of doing that. But I said we could, but the missus picked the middle one, so I'm guessing she didn't want me going on about having a $300 fucking blender. What do you mean it doesn't chop stuff? It's $300 worth of chopping. But now the 250 one though, it also had a heating element in it, which I don't really know why you would want. Like, why would you want your blender to also heat the thing at the same time? Is it so hard to own a pot in this economy? Like, hey Altis, nice to see you. Hopefully you're doing good today. So we have GWM. So what is left for the British MBT line since the Charlie 3TD is in the game? Is that line dead, or is there any possible tanks that they could add? If you mean the specific Challenger line, I mean, they could always just add another Challenger 2. There's that weird Challenger 2, which is one that was built by crews and ground forces to like make the ultimate kind of Challenger 2 in terms of making it you know, usable for the crew. So it has like silly things like a scoop on it, and then also it has like a brimstone on it for some reason, because I'm pretty sure the crew is just trolling. So yeah, there's stuff like that exists. But it's not gonna like add anything to the vehicle. There's also technically when the Challenger 3 actually enters service, because the Challenger 3 TD is the technology demonstrator, so the prototype. And whenever the 3 actually enters service, then technically you can add that one into the game. But yeah, I think in general, even though there are still challenges to add, I don't think they should focus on that. I think that they should probably focus on vehicles from South Africa, which there is technically another TTD variant they could add. There's also another Oliphant vehicle that they can add. They should focus on vehicles from India, and also other nations, just to make the variations a little bit better at the high tiers. Because I don't know a single person who goes, hey, you know what? I've already played 6 of these Challenger 2s. You know what I could really do with? Another Challenger 2. Like, what's the point? Well, yeah, there's the Challenger 3 with APS, and then as I said, like Challenger 3 MP, like main production or whatever you want to go. Yeah, and all the prototype Charlie ones too they can add, and even the prototype Charlie 2. There's plenty of things that they can add. It's just, for me, as I've said in the past, like when rank 8 came in for ground and it was like, hey guys, look, we got another Abrams. Nice. What's the difference? Oh, well, it's got like this commander machine gun. Okay. And then it's got like additional armor on the side. Oh, cool. What does it do? Oh, chemical protection. Oh. So it's just weight then. Yeah. Oh, okay. Hey guys, we got the Challenger 2 TES. Oh, nice. Yeah, it's got this new armor on the side. Oh, awesome. What, chemical protection again? Yeah, okay. So it's just heavier. Like, it's, for me, I don't find it that interesting just seeing the same vehicles but worse over and over again. And then they try and balance out the worst by giving them more factors like stock APF SDS or a better round. Like, it's, I don't find it interesting. Freeman has no legs anymore? I tried to contact him today because I can't remember when he's going to India. But he didn't get back to me. Or I didn't check, I should say. Too bad you get a Leopard 2. Yeah, exactly. I mean, at least for Brain, a Leopard 2 wouldn't be too bad. Because of the fact that, you know, they don't have one yet. But, yeah, the simple thing is, it's kind of dull. It's kind of dull playing the same vehicles over and over again. Like, I was talking about the Leopard 2s before. Every Leopard I've had to put 60, 70, 80 matches into, and I have spaded like 5 of them, and they're all the same. So imagine like you play like the Charlies, and you're like, hey, so I'm going to play the Charlie Mark 2, or the Charlie 2, nice! And then you play the 2F, then you play the TES, then you play the Black Knight, then you play the 2E, then you play the 3TD. Like, that's what, 6? 3, yeah, that's 6 vehicles, and not even including the US, if you wanted to play that too. And they all play exactly the same. Apart from this one, has a slightly better engine. And this one sometimes stops things hitting you. Gets kind of dull, especially the high echelons. So yeah, I'd rather they tried something else. So we have Katusha. Hey Tech, thanks for the answer, but I think you misunderstood my last comment's point about ground SP. That's okay, maybe I didn't phrase it as well, since English is my first language, so I'll try clearer this time, although it might be longer. That's all good. Number 1, you seem to think I was suggesting they do a BR-based matchmaker for ground sim like we have in AB and RB, but what I'm actually suggesting is to just do what they already do, but based on BR, and not arbitrarily like they do now. Instead, they should create a preset of vehicles with certain BR brackets. They would rotate around as needed. The BR bracket can be as big as 1.7 or 2.0 apart. If you think it will affect the wait times, which would still be more balanced than it currently is, we have vehicles 3 OBRs apart fighting each other, and the vehicles that are the same BR just arbitrarily not being in the same setup. Okay. So just making the limit smaller. The only issue with that, as I said previously, is stopping people playing specific vehicles that they want to play. But as long as it comes around. For the second suggestion, I never said I was for an SP-based system, or for putting a cap on the higher BR vehicles like they did in the Chronicles of World War II event. The idea was just to give the lower BR vehicles a reason to be used by incentivizing people to play them as a first or second spawn, since right now people only play the higher BR vehicles within the preset. Because why wouldn't you? If you really think the previous comment's idea is limiting players, how about just giving research bonuses to low BR vehicles instead? All I want is a reason to touch the low BR tanks in a preset, since right now there is no reason to do so. Sure, you can give them added bonuses. They already do, by the way. I know this is an interesting thing, right? You actually do get more RP for killing higher BR vehicles in a low BR vehicle than you do the opposite way around. Because of the rewards that the vehicles offer, and also the way that it's set up. So generally, you do get more rewards anyway, but they could always increase them, make them higher, if people want that to. Yeah, they could do that. Yeah, there are also the tier rewards, but as I said, there's just also other things too. Like, go if you're in like Hellcat, go kill a rank 1 and see how much RP you get from it, and then go kill like a rank whatever, like a rank 6. Let's see. 3. As for the last suggestion, you seem confused as to how exactly to differentiate operator nations from tech tree nations. This is already differentiated in the game. You bring up Italy as an example, so let's use that. Just look at the flag on the stat card. If you hover over it, it says 2 different nations, operator and research nations. If it has a Kingdom of Italy flag, it's on the Axis side. If it has an Italy flag, it's on the Allied side. It's that simple, really. If you have an alternate solution to copy-paste vehicles that is more simple, and that doesn't remove half of minor nations' vehicles from Simulator, I'd be glad to hear it. No, I don't have a solution because I just don't care about it. This is another thing, kind of like Heli PVE. These are conversations that are forced upon me that I'm not interested in, and therefore I have to have opinions on. And when I give my opinions, it has to be understood that that's where I come from. There's a reason why usually you don't have these conversations with people, apart from very small minorities, because very small minorities care about them and nobody else does. The fact that works great, apart from one thing. There are areas of the game where both sides of a conflict use the same vehicle. For example, China. So in China, you have something like the T-26. The T-26 was used by the PLA and the ROC in a captured form and in obviously like a operator form. So I suppose you could do that, but then you'd piss off the guys who don't want it to be like that. You can do that, sure. So it isn't as cut and dry as that. I wish it was. It isn't. In terms of the matchmaker and people enjoying sim or yada yada yada, sure. Like, as I said, the reason why Simulator is the way it is because it cannot capture enough people's interest and opinion on things to be able to make the matchmaker easier for them. So you have to find a way. Well, GDR MiG-29 is a great example too, yeah. That was also used by both. So, and even things like the Leopard 1, which was used by West Germany and also Germany. So what you have to do is you have to find a way of capturing people's attention in order to make it so the matchmaking makes sense. Now, this idea of revamping and completely changing how the matchmaker works is one of those things that Gaijin will never do because of the fact that it can lead them to the promised land, but it also could completely destroy the whole game mode. So it's a chance that they can't take. It's like the whole like BR decompression thing again. They're never, even if you want to consider it or go through it, if you limit the range of the matchmaker, right? The reason why the matchmaker is at that range is because there you can get comfortable matches in the parameters that they want people to be able to get to. If there's a sudden rush of simulator players that come out of nowhere and start playing these things, then the limit on the BRs can exist, right? These matchmaking rules are not being designed by Gaijin to be as like awful as possible or as oppressive as possible or whatever the thing is. They are being designed by them so people can not just get into matches, but also have the fairest chance in those matches. So the fact that that doesn't exist, because of the parameters that are there right now, that is the decision that they've made based on the current player base. So you have to find other ways which aren't matchmaking. Aren't matchmaking to bring people into it. The way that they do it with Naval is through Battle Pass challenges, through events, through all of these different things. They expanded into Simulator for events too, when it comes to Air Sim and also Ground Sim, so that's already a thing. So that's not working. So you need to find something that is out of the matchmaking to do that. Because if you decide to change the matchmaking and it doesn't work, the game mode no longer exists. It's just dead. It's gone, and you won't be able to revive it. Because in order to revive it, you would need to somehow, once again, just like you're trying to do now, get a surge of players into it straight away. And that's the problem. So you need to find other ways of doing it. Could be bonuses, which is something they already do. You get higher rewards in Sim. Could be Sim-specific events. That could work. You'd piss everybody off, but you could do it. You'd force people to play the game mode. You know. Could be like simulator-specific decals. Could be simulator-specific camos. Could be more achievements for these type of modes. All of these things are possibilities. They could do all of them. But one thing you cannot screw with on a massive kind of macro level is the matchmaking. Think about Naval, right? Naval, with the way that it was working, was completely floundering because people didn't want to grind through the PT boats to get to the destroyers. Because the moment you got to the destroyers, you could just annihilate the PT boats. They didn't change the matchmaking of Naval at all when they revamped the research system of Naval. It has stayed exactly the same since the start. Because the moment they start screwing with that, it alienates people, they leave. Even to a point of the only way of getting like coastal battles is to play a specific BR or get lucky enough to get a specific map if there's enough people in the matchmaker. Right? That's how they do it. So these ideas of changing the matchmaker, manipulating it around, making it more fair, or making it whatever, are all great. They're all fantastic, but they cannot be the solution. Because if you're wrong, everything dies. Right? It's like, I don't know, it's like if you have like an industrial plant or like, I don't know, a factory plant and you make widgets. And then you decide, you know what, for a year, we're going to make something else. We're gonna, I don't know, we're going to make wonkers. And you can't get anybody to buy your wonkers, so you have to go back to making widgets. But in that year, you left a gap in the market, so now there's another factory making widgets. So everybody's just going to that other factory. Because they make the thing that you used to, but you don't make anymore. And the way that businesses usually deal with this is they do slow transitions into that new product. Right? So slow transitions over time to get people used to it and also make the old one and then eventually move over to the new one. That's basically what iPhones are. Slow transitions over many generations to try and get people used to new products. Right? But the issue you have with that type of setup, right, is that's not what is being proposed. What is being proposed is a change which would cut the matchmaking by a third, which would mean that matchmaking times would increase by I don't know how long, which also would take away a bunch of vehicles out of the matchmaker that people want to play and force them onto other vehicles that they might not want to play. So they have a system right now that works. Is it the best system? No. Could it be better? Probably. But if they change it in the way that is being asked for, they could literally end its existence. And that obviously is untenable. So that's the problem. So if there are ways of changing it, which are not to do with matchmaking, and are to do with like research, or are to do with events, or are to do with rewards, or any of these things, it can be thought about. But if it's anything to do with limiting matchmaking, and anything to do with making those like brackets smaller, it's not gonna fly. Because those brackets are based on what is already there. And you can't build stuff off projections. Especially when you have 12 years of information that tells you the contrary. So we have Islam again. Hey Tech, I found something weird. The whole Italian tech tree doesn't have any squadron vehicles. Yeah, it's weird, right? I agree. I'm close to finishing the Chinese tech tree, and yes, the tanks got better at top tier. I'm really enjoying the MBT 2000, the VT4, and the WZ1001. On my way to the Chinese Air with the A5C. Nice. That's good. Yeah, it's kind of weird how we have all these like squadron vehicles, but certain nations are still missing out on them. I don't really know why. I feel like they could have easily taken one of the standard vehicles or one of the premium vehicles that they added in the game and just put them as squadron vehicles. But as I said, it also is weird that in the last 2 updates, including the one that hasn't come out yet, we have 6 squadron vehicles. But yeah. Gaijin even went out of their way to add low BRDDs and corvettes. People want the big boats. After a long time, it even feels like the small boats have a niche, even in larger battles. It'd be nice to have 1 or 2 small boat spawns in AB. You do get the small boat spawns, but yeah, it's one of those things where people, like, with the small boats you capture stuff, right? And then with the larger boats you kill stuff. It's kind of interesting how they work together. But yeah, the Italian tree could do with a squadron vehicle, even if it's just a copy of what is already there. I feel like they had a good opportunity with Naval. They could have added one of the American vehicles as a. They could have added one of the American vehicles as a premium. That could have worked pretty well. And instead, I think wasn't it like a squadron vehicle? Or it was like a premium vehicle or something. I'd have to look again. That part of the tree's whack for me. I can't remember any of it. But yeah, it is odd. Hopefully one day everything should get a squadron vehicle. So we have Last Red Star. Hi Tech, excited for the new update. What are you looking forward to the most? The scimitar, I think. The scimitar looks the funnest out of all of the things that exist. I think in general that one is probably up there as the best. I'm looking forward to the new graphical updates. I want to try the ray tracing stuff, see what it looks like, and also fixing my graphics settings, because my graphics settings right now, I uninstalled the game and reinstalled it, and I changed some of my graphics stuff, basically because it defaulted back to what it was, and I think the game looks pretty good, but there's just a little bit of a washout with the stuff with the stuff which is like a little bit further away. So what I'm thinking is, I used to run DLSS, but I can't anymore because it screws with the NVIDIA screenshot system. So what I'm thinking is maybe add in some kind of like depth of field filter for NVIDIA. So therefore what you can do is it kind of makes things which are far away be a little bit more blurry. And I think that will actually make it look better. Because that's basically what DLSS did. It did, sorry. It made everything kind of come together and made the focus on the vehicle instead of like the thing around it. where right now that is still the case, but it's not as apparent. So yeah, the graphical stuff's pretty cool. I really like the new test drive feature. I hope they expand upon it going forward. I hope they also start thinking about more additions to the ground one and also the naval one. It's nice to see they finally put together the air and the helicopter test drives, and I was kind of surprised that those things were not together for the longest time. It didn't make any sense to me, but I think it's a lot better now. Yeah, it makes everything fuzzy to Shio, which, you know, did mean it was hard to see things. Like, I feel like right now I'm seeing into, like, the soul of people in this game. But the thing that it did is it focused the video on the vehicle itself. So you focus on the vehicle instead of what's in the background. So having it off definitely increases gameplay in terms of like you being able to see what to do and to do stuff like that. But I actually prefer it on just from an aesthetic point of view. But as I said, I can just put on an NVIDIA filter that adds the depth of field. So it would look weird though, because it would look like a line which moves around the screen. But yeah, it would still work if I wanted to do it that way. I've been really interested in the history of China lately. I bought a book about Chiang Kai-shek. Victorious in Defeat. Our boy Chiang. It's really interesting. I would give it a read if you ever have the time. I've also been browsing vehicles for the Republic of China or Taiwan military use. We know they're using the Abrams now. Yeah, the M1A2T, right? But apparently they have M109 Paladins and various modern domestic vehicles which haven't made it to the game yet. Yeah, they do have a lot. Including their indigenous modern fighter jets, which I can't remember what they're called. Is it the FCs or something like that? Wonder why Gaijin hasn't been putting these into the game, but hopefully it'll be soon, because they look fun and unique. Glory to the One Republic of China. On a serious note, I'm mostly excited for the graphical updates. The update seems to be showing off, and the new sounds. Soundman cooked, in my opinion. The agents sound interesting. My favourite part of the trailer was the whole Patriot system firing and the Su-34 evading. That was awesome. I'm curious about the Patriot system. Wonder if it will be playable in a PvE setting, or is it just another, oh look at this, more ground targets to kill type ordeal. Thanks for reading, have a good day, see you on the stream later. I think it's more like ground target stuff. Like if you have a look at the code that they've added to the files and also the physical stuff, looks like they're bringing in more like base types and also more animations for things like the Patriot and also the S300. So the way that I see that is they're going to be more, well, systems in the game. So I don't think they'll be playable. I honestly think they'll just be around like airfields, or they'll just be like areas in the map where they fire stuff. But as usual with mechanics like that, they'll probably test them in sim and then move them over to everything else. Like, why not? I think when it comes to the Chinese tech tree, like, people always talk about, you know, Taiwan not getting a great deal in terms of their vehicles, but they've added a ton of stuff to them. Like, they way more than I feel like they could have done. The fact that even stuff like the CM11 was added, which is kind of surprising. But, you know, they're adding the Mirage 2000, this update for them. They're also adding a bunch of other stuff in the future for them. But the simple thing is, China's a huge nation, or two huge nations, in terms of military vehicles. One, you know, aggressor, one more defensive. And if you have a look at the FCKs, which I'm pretty sure that's what the Taiwanese aircraft are called, the FCKs, they look very similar to the F-16s, but they're not F-16s. They have some very modern systems on board, so I think that's one of those things we'll see once those modern types of systems will come into the game. But I don't think it's like an oppression thing. I don't think it's you know, Gaijin favoring one side or the other. I honestly think if you actually have a look at it, they just wanted to add more nations into the game. If you think about the vehicles that they've added to China recently, you know, the VT, the JF, the even the Mi-35, it's all about adding other nations to China, not just China itself. And that's kind of interesting to see. I feel like, and also, once again, the Mirage 2000 coming in. So, it's not the F2, I can't remember its name. It's got like a weird name. There's like a bunch of different variants of it. But yeah, it's one of those that I feel they'll add more to over time. And it's why a few years ago, and even to this day, China is massive in terms of potential for War Thunder. And it's something that we've seen a very small part of it right now. And we're going to see way more in the future as the game gets bigger. Like China, even though it's a meme, China will grow larger. Like, and they have been doing that a lot over the last period of time in War Thunder itself. To a kind of crazy degree. There you go, the AIDCFCK one. Yeah, there you go. It's that. The interdictor. So I'm hoping that stuff like that will come, but I don't think it's because they've forgotten about them or anything. It is literally, there's just so much to add, and you can't add them all at the same time. So, so we have Jerry. I wonder what SPA's Gaijin will add to nations to bring them on par with the Panzer, since most nations don't build self-contained SAMs like Russia does with the Panzer. And I don't think a convoy of trucks carrying around all your equipment would work. What most nations currently have as their top anti-air is basically the best SPAA that they can get without adding something like the Patriot. Also, did you know that the IS-3 in-game should be renamed to the IS-3M? Because only the M version had a 12.7mm machine gun on the roof. I don't know how much stock I put into, you know, nations being called, or vehicles being called specific stuff based on a machine gun. The only one I allow that is for the TTD, because the TTD second variant should have had a pintle mount. But yeah, there's a bunch of vehicles in the game that have machine guns they never had in real life. Or a bunch of vehicles in game that did have machine guns that don't have them. Like the Chinese one, right? How the Chinese premium has a 50 cal, and the standard Chinese Sherman does not have a 50 cal, even though there was 50 cals put on Chinese vehicles. So yeah, it's interesting coinky dink, that one. But yeah, I don't think they will add AAs on par with the Panzer, because they just don't exist in real life. I honestly think they have just gone way too far with this stuff now, and they don't know how to claw it back, so they're just adding more and more stuff, and they're gonna just continuously expand the BRs over and over again, and hope for the best for aircraft. Like I don't know what else they can do, you know. It's kind of crazy. Like, it's absolutely nuts in terms of it's absolutely nuts in terms of how much they've added to the game. And in this next update, they're adding even more horrific monsters. So, I don't know. Hey, bullets from above, nice to see you. Like, in the coming update, they're adding in 4 vehicles at the top tier of the game that are insanely good at CAS. Like, to a ridiculous level. So how do you ever... And you already have a bunch of vehicles in the game that already have all of the things that make those things good too. So, what's the plan? I think the way that they are balancing these things is through BR. But the moment they make it so... The moment they make it so the vehicles can't be seen in ground is the moment they're worthless. And if we're honest, a lot of these vehicles should not be allowed to be in ground. But they won't do that yet. Maybe with this next set. Maybe with the F-15 and the Su-34, they might make it so they're too high BR in ground to actually get into ground battles. But I don't think that'll be the case. People will still run them. There'll still be a BR bracket. Because it's crazy. Like, it really is. It's just nuts how effective these things are. And not effective fun. Just... You're literally just a pawn, and... yeah, you're just waiting to die a lot in high tier. It's really boring. Played a few matches with even the Puma recently, the VGM, whatever it's called. And usually the way that I play vehicles, if I'm spading them, is they're like the top BR vehicle, and then everything else kind of fits around them. The issue with the Puma is it's on an island. And the only AA you can run with it is the Florak Panzer, which is a complete waste of time against actual CAS. Why giving them so many ground weapons if they can't be used? They can still be used in the air game mode. Like, that's the thing. They still can be, you know, you can still go after AI stuff. But it's already at a point now, like at top tier, where it's nuts. It's been that way for like 2 years now. And the Steam train just keeps adding more and more stuff. Like, even in that interview that BVD did at the start of the year, he talked about the hardest thing is balancing out all of these factors against each other. And it feels like a constant battle where you have to do it. And then it's like, yeah, obviously. Why do you keep adding to the problem? You don't solve a fire by pouring fire onto it. Like, it's... well, you know, you don't solve like a gas fire by pouring on like, you know, highly flammable oils. Just doesn't make any sense. Yeah, that's what they keep doing. The F4S is in a pretty good place, yes. It works very well. Then we have Adam Armstrong. Aerosol is 6-7 plus, it's absolutely crazy. Each match is completely ruined by 1 or 2 tryhards hogging all the targets, stopping anyone without half a dozen radar missiles getting kills. I played a game the other day where someone with the most missile kills was jaying out to a Buccaneer to hog all of the ground targets too. For no real gain other than to deny kills to lower tier players, thus denying them the booster from that mode. It's absolutely toxic, and it happens in practically every aerosol match. 75% of the kills go to 2 people. Doesn't surprise me. But I think they're doing it to try and maximize how much they get out of it, right? Like, that's the whole idea. But yeah, stuff like that sucks. It really does. It's no fun. But that's what PvE modes become, right? Like, that's why it's important to play with different people who are around the same level as you. So then you can squad up and try and do things together. Like, it reminds me of playing games like Vermintide or Space Marine 2 or Killing Floor. You know, if you have somebody who's crazy high level and then everybody else is like lower level, those guys who are lower level are going to have a horrific time because they're just going to get beaten up over and over again. And the person who's the high level is going to be the only one who can actually do stuff. And, you know, that sucks. And it means, you know, if you go at too high of a level, you just lose. And it's not very fun. Hey Chanwitz, nice to see you. And Aerosol all get the same at the end though. They don't get the same score, right? Like, I think you get more score for doing more. Yeah. Then we have Zigazagu. SMBRs are messed up and nobody seems to care. They really went out their way to mess shit up. Don't think they did at all, to be honest. I don't think that's how it works. As I said, we've talked about it many times in terms of simulator and other modes. Kind of getting bored that the modes which are played by like 5% of the population are the ones that get all the chat. It's as if people only focus on negatives or something weird. Time to start thinking a bit more positively. Why not? And we have Flyboy Joe. The BP is okay, but I want a chance to get the main rewards from the previous BP that I missed. Also, instead of the GE wager, I'd rather have just GE because a wager based on luck and RNG is just lousy. Yeah, I don't think the compensation part is good enough. I'm fine with something that doesn't force you to play the game, but one of the areas that it wants you to do is to play the game. This is the thing for me, right? So I've always thought about the idea of how to fix these things properly. And the general way that you do it is you make a prize guaranteed, but what you also do at the same time is you make it so the grind itself is the part that is the challenge. So you have to have the guaranteed prize no matter what. Because if you don't have the guaranteed prize, people get super pissy. For good reason. It's not really fun. It's not really fun being in a position where you RNG a prize, right? That you don't want. So it's better to have a setup where you're always guaranteed the prize. But the level of grind is the bit that can be changed and altered based on how they feel it should be right or wrong. The issue with the Battle Pass right now is you can do everything right in terms of grinding out and getting everything done, and you can still lose because you don't get the thing that you want. And that sucks. Hey, Rosmeo, nice to see you. New microphone? Maybe like 4 or 5 months ago. New headphones? From like a month ago. But yeah, so that's kind of the issue that I see. It's the whole RNG thing. If they fix that, everything's good. But I don't think they will, because, as we said previously, too many people are addicted to gambling. And they can get away with it. So we have the Iron Ryan. Hey boss man, hope you're well. I'm alive and kicking, thank you. Life is good. I have a tinfoil hat theory regarding the lesser value of the Battle Pass. I've been a long-term player of the game and completed most of the seasons to get the vehicle coupons. Ironically, the Battle Pass has saved me money in the long run, as I have been able to purchase premium time, vehicle packs, event tasks, etc. by holding on to certain coupons for long enough. Personally, I think this is why Gaijin is lowering the quality, an attempt to get long-term players to start spending real money on the game again. I also think the SL loot boxes are placed in the game for a similar reason. If an account has millions of SL, why not roll the dice on a couple of boxes? As a test of self-control for sure. I also believe experienced players have an easier time completing the season because they have access to all the efficient lineups. That's true, yeah. That's very true. This seems to make sense from a business point of view, but that's not to say I agree with it as a consumer. I can't imagine Gaijin reversing this trend, so I'd hope they add value by including profile customization items in future seasons. Animated profile frames, profile backgrounds, kill cam effects, avatars, etc. It would be nice if they expanded the number of vehicle decorations and decals too. Yeah, that would be nice actually. I agree with all of your suggestions. See you later, AK Shafi. Look after yourself. I feel like in terms of the value thing, it might be about trying to get people to spend real money on it, but what you have to remember is every Gaijin coin that is in the ecosystem of the Gaijin market was paid by somebody. So the Gaijin market itself has made Gaijin an insane amount of money. And just like the reason why, you know, World of Warcraft or many other systems have like a market in them that, you know, sometimes players can trade on, but a lot of the incentive for it for, you know, the company is so they make those margins on the trades. And then also the people inputting the Gaijin coin in the first place are putting in real money to convert to Gaijin coins. So they actually make more money doing it that way because it gives vehicles more of a value. If they wanted to make more money from that, they would just, every battle pass would have insanely overpowered vehicles in it. So what they're doing is actually kind of the opposite of that. And I don't think it's down to them trying to get people to spend real money, because in terms of Gaijin coin is real money, right? And percentages of that real money actually disappears every time somebody makes a trade. So somebody has to put in more money at the end of the day. So it's actually more enticing for people to put in money in the Gaijin market than it is the standard Gaijin store, which is kind of crazy to think about. So yeah, I'm not sure about that one, but I honestly think it is just like the standard business practice. You get enough people hooked to a product, and then you lessen its value, so therefore you can redistribute value to other things in the game. Because now that the battle passes themselves are a lot less valued, you know what is more valued now? Events, right? See you later, PlayerUnknown. Look after yourself, man. Like, events in general this year have massively increased in value because you don't have to spend any money and you can get all the vehicles that you want. You don't have any silly crafting system that you have to do, or you don't have any RNG mechanics in any of these. It's literally just play and you get everything. So if anything, Gaijin has massively shot themselves in the foot by removing the crafting events, because now people are guaranteed to get everything, so they don't actually need to use the market, right? But because of the fact that they've also made so much more stuff coupons in the form of vehicles and also other things, technically that also increases the value of stuff on the market, right? So it's like a double thing. All these like systems intertwine and make like this one big thing. You take a little bit from here, you put a little bit more in there. But with battle passes, with every game, battle passes lose value over time, just because you have like a constant set of people who will always buy the battle pass, like people like me and many others, and then you'll have other people who are enticed by specific things in the battle pass, and that increases gradually over time. And so that's what you do. You know, that's generally what you sort out. And it sucks because every time you like set up to do the new one, you know it's going to be slightly worse than the last one. And then what ends up happening is if it gets to a point where not enough people buy the battle pass, that's when they'll start adding more value to it again, which you'll probably see in about a year or two. They'll probably come out with like a new system, or they'll come out with a new way of like doing it, or there'll be like something more based around like Squadron stuff, because that seems to be something they're looking at more right now. So yeah, there's like a multitude of different things that they're gonna do to increase the value of it. Whether it's just adding the profile stuff, because that's also another thing that you got to remember that they're doing. So it's all about just moving around and manipulating different parts. Adding a bit here, removing a bit over there. Alright. So we have Moth. Howdy Tech. As you know, the Poland tech tree was recently leaked. Do you think it will be anything like Israel, where you have to unlock the tree or not? Also, how do you think it will affect the future of the game and the future subtrees? I don't really put a lot of stock into those leaks. We already knew nations were going to come to the game. That's just kind of how this has to go. Everything has to expand. It can't stay still. So for the leaks themselves don't really change my like general feelings about these things. I think they all work as subtrees. I really, really, really don't want a situation where we have another anemic independent tree. I don't know how many people would be interested in an anemic independent tree. And I know if you're Polish or even from like that area of Europe, it might seem kind of interesting and also may give you hope that your nation will also be added into the game, because that's one thing that Israel did, where it made a lot of people talk about adding in their nations and not specifically actually the Israeli tech tree. But the amount of people who actually play it is tiny. Like it's insane. Which is probably why they haven't added any other nations after it yet, in terms of independent stuff, and focused on the subtree idea, which is what they should have done anyway. Like, I think they kind of realized, oh, this stuff's kind of tapped out. Damn. So yeah, I don't think they'll add it as an independent tree. Those leaks for me really screamed of like there was a meeting about like future plans like over the next like 5 to 10 years and what they want to focus on, or you know what it did actually scream of? So this is something that we don't really talk about too much. Researchers exist in the War Thunder ecosystem. Usually Gaijin goes out and will ask specific people who work in specific areas to go and actually do research for them and like send them back it. So like go to museums, you know, they pay for their trips and they pay for accommodation and go, hey, go find this stuff and, you know, send it back. You know, I know one of the guys who does the American side of things, one of the guys who does the British side of things, South African side of things, you know, Russian side of things, and even the Japanese stuff. So these leaks just like stink of, they asked a bunch of people who were in those like research spheres to go and have a look at these things and kind of bring back information so they can start modeling and start like, you know, setting up all these different things. So yeah, I don't put a ton of thought into it. I know how I would want it added, but how I want it added is obviously very different to what reality may be. I think it would be better if they added them in if they're gonna go an independent tree, which I don't think they should do some kind of combined tree. Just do like a European tree at that point. No messing. European tree with additional research bonuses for playing the same vehicles 50 times over. I think that's probably the way to do it. If anything, that might be the only way to do it. So we have JD Burton. As related to the ground sim discussion, I don't think Tech plays this, and his opinion seems ignorant on the current situation. Okay. Thank you for your thoughts. I do understand how simulator matchmaking works. I also understand the tests that they did in the past when it came to these things. But as I said, I'm not interested in the discussion. Find somebody else. Then we have Professor 78A. Hello, Tech. You seem like a smart guy to me. A guy who has seen many things, so I'd like some advice from you. Oh dear. Gotta be careful with that. Let's go with that. I'm a student and studying to become a doctor. I don't want to become a doctor because the time commitment is like 10 to 14 hours a day studying, and the 8 to 10 years in further studies, college and whatnot. So, okay. But there's no skill I'm good at in particular and no dream of sorts. What should a guy like me do? Become a doctor or try else after completing my basic studies? Well, obviously you have to ask yourself why you want to become a doctor. And if you don't have any skills in anything, but you're also on the track to go to like university and do everything that you need to do to become a doctor, then you obviously have skills in things. You just don't rate yourself, which is fine. Confidence is a large issue for a lot of young people, and that's fine. You know, you'll find the things that it isn't what you are good at. It is actually more about what you believe you are good at. Like, if you're already doing your standard studies and you're already at that level, you are obviously good at things. You are already in the top 10% of the population, and maybe even in the top 5. So this gives you a lot of options to be able to do whatever you want to do. It depends on your backing, for a start, whether you have these things funded or whether you are taking out loans to do these things, and also what type of financial supports you can think about over the next period of time. Because if you don't have any financial support and you're going to take out just a metric shit ton of loans to do this, that could easily be a factor into why you continue to do this. Because if you are not passionate about the thing, but now you have a mountain of debt on the top of your head, you are going to be forced to continue this thing, because if you don't continue it, you are going to be up shit's creek. So that's a huge factor in general. In terms of, if you want to continue it, if you want to complete it, or what you want to do with it. Now, being a doctor is pretty cool. You get paid a lot of money, and generally you have a lot of social interaction. You also get blamed for a lot of things, and also usually become quite ignorant of people, which is kind of sad in general. The major thing is it definitely fits specific personality types. It's impossible to find out about your actual own personality because you're an incredibly biased person when thinking about yourself. So this is a conversation you have to have with your friends, your family, and whether you want to do this stuff or not. Doubt is good. It is positive. I know a lot of people say you shouldn't doubt in times of these big decisions. Doubt is your greatest friend because it means that you make sure that you think about all of these things and make sure that you actually make the correct decision. But the major thing I would look into when it comes to the whole doctor thing is, can you deal with the emotional side of it? Because the emotional side of it was basically the reason why I didn't go into medicine when I was fully capable of doing so. When I finished my my studies at A level, I can't remember what the test is, but you do a test to see if you'll be accepted into medical programs in the UK. Does anybody know what it's called? I can't remember its name. I can't remember what it's called, but yeah, I did really well on it basically. So I had like all the theory down, I had all that down, but when I started looking into some of the classes about how do you deal with grief, how do you deal with like the mental side of things, I realized I just wasn't ever going to be able to do that. I find it very hard to even think about the idea of telling somebody that they're going to die. And also just the stress of that, not being able to aid in a situation. And even when it comes to my job now, which is incredibly mechanical in terms of how it works, there are some situations where it's like, damn, I can't fix this. Like, it's just bust. Like, and I don't really interact with human stuff that much. It's more machinery and also functions, right? So even then, that kind of cripples me. So I would have never been able to deal with the emotional side of it. So the first things I would think about is the financial pressure. If the financial pressure is going to be there, then I would reconsider and look into a degree pattern that is going to give you much more of a stress-free life and also a high monetary value. If the financial factor is not there, and that's like kind of taken care of, then I would ask the people who are the ones who are, financially backing you, because as a young person, it's definitely not yourself who's backing you in that regard. And you'd ask them how they would feel if you weren't able to complete it, or if there was a problem. And then if they would still back you, no matter what, then it's completely your independent decision. If they wouldn't, And now you have some interesting retrospective questions that you have to ask yourself. And you have to be able to be okay with those people holding that over your head the rest of your life. So yeah, it's a tough one. For me, as I said, I couldn't do it. I could have easily done the work, like in terms of understanding a lot of the biology setup, understanding a lot of the chemistry setup. I could easily probably do, you know, a lot of the other parts, but my main problem was the emotional side of things. I think I would have become a robot very, very quickly if I'd gone into that type of work, and that to me is not what I wanted to become. So yeah, those are the questions you have to go through, and you'll be able to deal with it. The good thing is, as I said, you're already on a path to success in terms of what you have. You already have, you know, even if you don't go into medicine or don't go into a doctorate or whatever, you still have a very solid platform of whatever degree you've decided to do. So focus on that for the time, you know. I'd never become a life coach, Ephialtis. First of all, I really don't like taking money from people for discussing how I feel about how to push things through. But then the other part of it as well is once it becomes a monetary thing, it kind of takes away the human part of it, and it is rife open for abuse. I'd rather have conversations about these things. The other problem I also have in terms of that is I'm very, very picky in terms of people that I'll work with when it comes to teaching. I used to be a lot more open about things. Like I'd try my best to you know, help out in terms of, you know, trying to help people with whatever they needed help with. But nowadays, even if there's just a whiff of I'm just here because they need somebody to solve the issue and they want to be the person who solves the issue, or they're not actually interested in the thing, I just walk very quickly. So like, there are very obvious things a human can do to better their life in terms of health, in terms of food, in terms of financial decisions. And if I'm talking to somebody who's asking for advice, or even like, you know, mutual like setup, and then they just turn around and it's very obvious, like they start like disagreeing with stuff, or they start like being agitated about things. Like I've had too many mates who are like that, and I'm just like, you know what, it's all good. You just do you, boo. Like I can't be fucking asked. Like, and obviously I can't do that if I'm put in a situation where I'm reliant on people for money to do that, right? And that's the way it goes. I can't imagine being like a motivator or like anything like that, because I would end up just so annoyed and bored. Like it would just be very, very boring for Okay. Then we have Nick Duplaga. Germany rank 8 is horrible. Only Sweden has good Leos. Leo 2A7V has a slower top speed, heavier, less armor, lighter darts, and Germans has only one. No rank 8 CAS, and helicopter gets destroyed by S1 even before taking off. And if not, then strafed by some jets and then raise the BR. Germany needs another 2A7 with the PSO engine or something. Sure, why not? Yeah, Germany's just really bad. Might as well go with that narrative. So then we have XXX. Video title clearly says anniversary, so expected questions and answers about this topic. What do I get? Yeah, whatever. And then we have Mike Doss, rigged game. The title is referencing the fact that the anniversary was the next week, because it was the next week. And it was mentioned. The whole point of this podcast is to go through the comments. If that's not understood, there's nothing I can do. I can't tailor experiences to specific people's wants. I can only tailor them to mine, because that's what I enjoy, and that's what, I have fun with. If you tailor experiences to every individual, it's never going to work. Otherwise, I'd be talking about heli PVE, air sim. I'd be talking about all the different game modes all the time, and it wouldn't work. And it would all be incredibly negative as well. Because as I said, the vast majority of discussions had is just negative ones. No optimism, just death. What can you say? Right, so that's the tech talk done. 2.5 hours, pretty long one this time, but there's a lot of comments to go through, a lot of things to chat about. Next week, we're going to be playing Headquarters World War II, and also War Thunder and a few other things. The KV7 event should be done next week, which is quite nice. We'll be streaming a lot, making a bunch of content, having a bit of fun. So look after yourselves. Peace be with you. Bye-bye.